Hi everyone, welcome back. This week in Level E, we're going to be looking at lessons 105 through 108. You will need worksheets 77-1 through 80A or B, practice sheet 11, the protractor and the angle circle from worksheet 76, triangles from worksheet 76, the goniometer, a geared clock, geoboard and rubber bands, the math card games book, the fraction, multiplication, and basic number cards. In lesson 105, we will discover the sum of the angles in a circle and use the protractor for measuring those angles. You can give the multivide as a warm-up or as independent work at the end of this lesson. On worksheet 77-1, have your child use the protractor that he or she made in the last lesson to measure the angles in each of the circles. If your child finds the protractor too difficult to use, maybe because it wasn't drawn properly or it's just flimsy or whatever, go ahead and have them use the goniometer. From this work, your child will discover that there are 360 degrees in a circle. Using the triangles that were cut out from worksheet 76, your child will also discover that there are 180 degrees in a triangle. Please note, the instructions say to tear the corners off of the triangle. And this is really important. If you cut them, like I did the first time I taught this lesson, it will be much harder to determine where the vertex is. But if you tear them, it will be obvious that the vertex is the pointed end. Now we're going to move on to determining the angles on a clock. So let's take a look at a few of those questions.
Okay, so here is our geared clock. We're going to move the hand to the 3 and see what the degree is from the 12 o'clock over to the 3. So we can match that up with our angle circle, and we see that this is 90 degrees. You're going to go ahead and figure out various positions on the clock. And I would not use the circle to find out what the degree is, but only to confirm what the degree is. So for example, if I move my hand to the 7, what is this angle here? This one. Well, how would we know? If we knew that this is 90, then this has to be 180. And one of the steps before was to figure out if it was pointing at the 1, how many would that be? Well, that would be 30 degrees because it would be 30, 60, 90, right? So each of these numbers is 30 degrees. So if we know that this is 90, this is 180, 180 plus 30 would be 210. So then you can find on your circle the measurement for 210 and confirm that sure enough, here's the 210, that is the same angle.
Okay, so have your child complete worksheet 77-2 and answer the in conclusion questions. You can finish up this lesson with the subtraction game of your choice. In lesson 106, we will introduce the terms central angle and inscribed angle. After the oral warm-up questions, which go over the classifications of angles, your child will be working with the geoboard. Let's take a look at some of the work that will be done.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is a central angle. So a central angle starts here at the center. So we can put a rubber band from the center over to, say, the 3 o'clock position if this were a clock. Then we're going to hook it onto the center again and go to the next peg. This is 15 degrees. Here it is 30 degrees. 45, which as you can see would be half of 90, right? Okay, and you can move all the way around. Now I knew what angle this was based on the fact that I know that this is 90 degrees. And since we just worked in the last lesson with the clock, that should be pretty obvious. But we can also check it with the goniometer. So you just put the central peg right here in the center and you measure there, and then you check here and it says 45 degrees. So when the vertex of the angle is here in the center, it's called a central angle. But if we move the vertex of the angle over to one of the side pegs, this is called an inscribed angle because here's your circle and the angle is inscribed on the outer part of the circle. Okay, so we can measure that angle with the goniometer, and it's 15 degrees. Now the activity is to move the vertex, leave these 2 points, and move the vertex anywhere else on the circle. So let's say we go there. Then we measure the angle, and it's also 15 degrees. Let's move them again. And you can move them one at a time or together, whichever works for your child's fingers. And to here, we measure it again. It is also 15 degrees. So it's interesting to know that regardless of where you move the vertex on the circle, if the 2 endpoints remain the same, the angle remains the same from the inscribed angle.
So now your child can compare inscribed and central angles and then complete the worksheet. Ask the in-conclusion questions and have your child choose a multiplication game. In lesson 107, we will learn the term adjacent and work with central angles and polygons. Have your child complete the second multivide on practice sheet 11, and then let's look at the first activity.
Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is to make a hexagon. And we want to make a 60-degree angle with 2 rubber bands. Okay, so for this first activity, we're going to be making a hexagon. Go ahead and stretch 1 rubber band out. And then we do the second one and measure to make sure that we have 60 degrees. Now, your child only needs to measure once, because then they'll figure out that there's actually 3 pegs in between the 2 rubber bands. So from then on, they can just keep going. Now, the problem I find with this particular geoboard that I'm working with is that the peg in the center is not tall enough to fit a bunch of pegs on. So, a bunch of rubber bands on. So what I'm going to do is to use these rubber bands and stretch them all the way across so that we can get more than one angle in there. All right, so this first one, we stretch across this way. And this way. And then we just keep moving around the circle, making sure that you have 3 pegs in between each rubber band. Okay, so once you have all of these central lines built up, you may be tempted to use 1 rubber band to draw each of the sides of the hexagon. Let me tell you, you will be very frustrated if you do that. So go ahead and have your child use just 1 rubber band and stretch it to encompass the entire hexagon. The reason why I say that is because these pegs are so short that if you use 1 rubber band for each side, you won't have enough room to put all of the rubber bands that you would need. So 1 can stretch all the way around and form the sides of the hexagon.
Okay, so you'll go ahead and have your child form those polygons and then complete the worksheet. Answer the in-conclusion questions and choose a division game to play. All right, lesson 108 is a review and game day. After asking your child the oral questions, have your child complete the review. And then once that's done and corrected, play the percentage war game, which is F48 in the math card games book. If you would like to review some of the missed questions, here are lessons to go over. All right, if your child missed the oral questions, number 1, review lesson 33. Number 2, review lesson 4 and 19. Number 3, review lesson 33. For the write the answers section, for number 1, review lesson 89. For number 2, review lesson 98. And for number 3, review lesson 13. For the do the calculations section, Number 1, review lessons 21 and 22. For number 2, review lessons 13. For number 3, review lesson 68. And for number 4, review lesson 59. For the Find the Missing Angle section, review lesson 105. For the True False section, review lessons 102, 106, and 107. For Classify the Triangle, review lessons 102 and 104. And for Which Angle is Greater, review lesson 100. All right, so that's all for this week. I hope you have a great one, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.